Cheers, dear.
Cheers.
All right, this is
Part 2.
the Goulet origin story 2.0.
Yes.
Truth be told, we intended on wrapping it up on Monday. Didn't do that. We have a lot more to say. So we're going to do that.
So we're going to kick off from when we got married at 22.
Yes.
Talk about what this first couple years of marriage were like and how we created the Goulet Pen Company.
Yeah, because that honestly, there's like the origin story of us and how we met, and then there's the origin story of how us in our early marriage life created Goulet Pens, because it is kind of a crazy story.
So we got married, as we mentioned, a couple months out of college, Virginia Tech.
We'd been together almost 5 years because we met in high school.
Yep.
So we were not new to the idea of being married. We'd been engaged for like 3 years almost.
Yeah. Well, anyway,
it wasn't sudden, even though it was right out of school. It wasn't.
We had a
sudden.
very long engagement, which I don't recommend. I planned and replanned the wedding so many times.
We had like 3 different
Dates.
venues booked in 2 different cities, and yeah, it was dramatic. Anyway.
So I had a degree in business management with an HR concentration.
And I had a degree in residential property management, so like managing apartment complexes and real estate and stuff like that.
So I got a job working as a federal HR specialist, a staffing specialist. So I worked...
Sorry, I was falling asleep as you were explaining that. She was really good at it, though.
I pulled the wagon, dear.
She made it exciting.
So I worked as a contractor for Department of Homeland Security. The company was actually based out in Northern Virginia, and I worked there actually starting the year before I graduated college. I worked during my remotely during my last year of college.
Little side note here. So Rachel and I both worked while we were in college.
Yes.
Which
multiple jobs.
I personally am a huge proponent of.
Mm-hmm.
I think it shows a lot of fortitude when you work a job while you're in school. Even though studying is important and all that kind of stuff, man, it really shows a lot to me when somebody's able to work while they're in school. Anyway,
yes, I did like retail jobs and stuff, but like that was a real job. So I actually started before I graduated, and then once I graduated, I went kind of full-time, got my own training.
Yeah.
And then when we got married, we moved to Richmond. Well, he was already here. I moved down to Richmond once we got married, and I worked remotely for a year. So I was working 50 hours a week just because I loved it, and I really liked my job.
Yeah, because she's a hustler. She's got a work ethic.
I can't help myself.
She loves to work. That's part of why we get along so well, is we are both like hard driving, hard working, goal oriented people. So it was like
we support each other.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and in fairness, you weren't pulling in a lot of money yourself, so I took all the overtime opportunity I could. Because when you're newly married, right out of college, you're broke. Like you don't have any like. We started talking about our TV before.
Oh my gosh! So just as an example,
it paints a picture of what
we didn't travel, we didn't vacate, we didn't go out, we didn't really have a social life because we're kind of we have our marriage thing.
I worked from home by myself.
We had like one friend that was my roommate in college who we would go out with every now and then. That was pretty much our whole social network. So our main form of entertainment when we weren't working our tails off was to like watch TV or something.
We had an Xbox.
Yeah, we did have an Xbox that I had from college. So we would play like NCAA football 2006 and stuff like that.
So we had this TV from what, like 1984?
It was from 1984.
One of those like deep big box things because we couldn't afford our own TV. So it was a hand-me-down, and we chose not to do cable because we
wanted to save the money.
Broke.
So we had rabbit ears.
Yes, we were rapidly trying to build...
Not high-def rabbit ears
Rapidly trying to build our savings. So, yeah, we got 4.5 channels. And I say a half because...
One of them was, like, pretty fuzzy. You could, like, sort of pick up the
so
audio.
fuzzy. There's this one time, and we didn't have, like, DVR or anything, too. So we had to watch what was on. And we mentioned the VHS. So if there's something we liked, we would, like, have to be home because we couldn't program it for some reason.
It wasn't programmable.
We'd have to be home, hit the record
it was not
button.
a programmable VHS. It was the VHS player from 1984. My dad bought a camera, a VHS player, and a television when I was born in 1984, which was very new technology at the time.
So PBS is one of the channels we got. You're really into New Yankee Workshop, and David Marks, what was his show?
Woodworks.
Yeah. So a bunch of woodworking stuff, just kind of as a hobby. He's always been interested. So I remember, like, on Saturdays, like, all right, we got to get home at 1 because we got to hit the record button.
Got to hit the record button and watch that New Yankee Workshop.
So, and I remember one time it was a Saturday. We're trying to find something on TV. We're watching a game or a sporting event.
It was golf.
I know, but Well, no, there was a different one. We couldn't tell what the sport was. It was true. So fuzzy.
It was either soccer or something.
But I remember that one time watching golf, they hit the ball and we're like, where's the ball?
Yeah, you know how it like traces the ball in the sky and all that, and you're like, I can't see the ball. And it lands on the green, you're like, I can't see the ball. No,
it's a different game. It was like on a green field. We couldn't tell if it was football or soccer or anything else. And we couldn't even tell what the scores were, what the teams were. We're like, all right, we might need a new TV. So after 1 year of marriage, we did save up. He had a friend who worked at Best Buy, got us his employee discounts, and we got like a real TV. An actual TV. But so the first year of marriage, I was working. You went to go power wash for your dad.
Yeah, so like I did an internship, like a property management internship, and
which was required to like complete your degree.
It was required to complete my degree because I changed my major late. So I technically didn't get my diploma until the summer after I graduated. They still let me walk, but I got my diploma after my internship. But I had to wear a suit every day, and I literally felt like I was dressing up to play a part in like a theater play, like wearing a suit. It just is not me.
In 2006, I mean, you guys know what happened with housing and stuff just a couple years later. So the writing was on the wall.
Real estate was at its peak, and I was looking around and I was like, this is going to burn to the ground, and I'm going to be a freshly graduated college person with no experience.
They're going to churn you and burn you
I am going to be at the bottom of this pile of embers. And so I recognized that. And I had like a connection and interviewed for like a name your own price job pretty much in the commercial real estate market. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to power wash houses with my dad with this company he started a year earlier.
But you know what? He looked at them and you're like, you know what? It's an opportunity to spend time with my dad. Yeah. To run my own business, but I didn't have to start it, but I still get a little bit of practice for what it's like to kind of run my own franchise of sorts. You had to deal with customers and scheduling. Yeah. You had to maintain your equipment, all those things. Like, and I remember driving around, putting flyers in mailboxes. Like, I was with you. I got a little car sick because
Rachel gets a little car sick.
I mean, I didn't like actually, but you know, like when you're driving around,
it was a pretty nauseating experience
for like 8 hours, putting things in mailboxes, and you're driving. Oh.
That's what you do. If we didn't have jobs to do, we were marketing. That was how it worked. So we were trying to get the business off the ground.
I supported you and all that.
I was making like $10 an hour as a college grad, trying to get this business off the ground, and not $10 an hour, like 40 hours a week either. It was.
So that's why my job was really important. So I did that job for about a year, the federal HR staffing and stuff. And then I had a notion I wanted to do like more IT focused, like programming or something.
You're good at that
stuff. So I took a couple community college classes in like, you know, some SQL and some VB and things like that. I actually landed a job at Capital One as a Excel programmer. Like macros and VBA and stuff. I started out as a contractor, and then they made me permanent after that. So again, I had the stable job while he was, you know.
Well, I was the unstable one. There's a theme here.
You also did carpet cleaning as well.
Oh yeah, we did carpet cleaning, power washing, leaf pickup, you name it. We were trying to get a business off the ground, so we were doing kind of whatever work we could.
So right around the time I started, was it when I was working for Capital One? Yeah, after I worked for Capital One, that's around the time that you got into the pen lathe.
Yeah, and
we're getting to the. I know we spent like 8-9 minutes here. Like we haven't gotten like where are the pens?
We'll get there. We promise. Your perseverance will pay off. So yeah, what happened with me, and you'll notice there's a trend with me. I tend to get kind of focused on something, and then I abandon it and get focused on something else. And what happened here is I was doing the power washing thing, trying to get that off the ground with my dad. We were having some early signs of success, and it was a sustainable business, but it wasn't like raking it in for me.
Right.
So I had some downtime. So, because I couldn't always be passing out flyers or doing whatever. So, late in the evening and stuff like that in the summer, I was inspired by Norm Abrams with New Yankee Workshop. I wanted to work with wood. I love building stuff, working with my hands. I have my whole life. And I, couldn't build giant armoires and antique style furniture like Norm was doing.
We had an apartment.
We had an apartment with a covered balcony.
Yeah, I guess so. It actually was before I went to Capital One.
It was, yeah.
Because that's when we moved into that rental house.
It was. So what I ended up doing, I somehow, because Rachel loves me, was able to convince her that it was a good idea for me to turn our covered balcony into a workshop. It was probably against our lease policy. But I put up plastic sheathing so you couldn't really see what was going on.
Second story.
What happened was a lot of it was fueled because we
didn't even have power out there. You had to drape extension cords out the window, like we'd crack the window so he could get power out there. Even like hung pegboard and everything.
It was the most legit apartment balcony operation you've probably ever seen.
We never got complaints. We were like in the back. And,
we didn't, yeah. We were smart about it, but...
So somehow you got this Grizzly catalog, opening it up,
Grizzly
and you found
Tools, yep. Anybody who's in woodworking, you know Grizzly Tools. They have a catalog that's like 300 pages thick. It is just like the Bible for, overseas made tools. So I was flipping through this thing.
Pen lathe, and you're like, this is small. I could do this. They have you buy these little kits of the metal pieces, and then you turn you turn the barrels.
This was like the whole pen section of this catalog was like literally 2 pages out of the 300 or 350 pages.
I don't know how that's what you stumbled across, but that's...
Because I read every page of that catalog.
That's true.
And I was like in my mind fantasizing and building my dream workshop, but like a $10,000, riving knife sliding table saw doesn't make sense in an apartment balcony. So I was thinking realistically,
we had no line of sight to buying a house at that point.
What could I actually do? So I convinced Rachel that I should get a small pen lathe. And she was like,
why?
Why
are you going to make pens?
And I kind of
What are we going to do with all the pens?
And I kind of sold it to her as, look, you're watching these woodworking shows with me. I'm itching to do something, build something with my hands.
Scratch the itch.
This is going to be outside. It's going to be outside. I'm not going to get any dust in the house. And you won't have to hear me talking about it all the time because I'll be out there doing it. And she was like, sold.
So 2007, it was in the summer because it was really hot and you get really sweaty and sawdust and stuff.
Oh, yeah. You made 95 degrees.
You made your first couple pens. They were like ballpoint twist things, although we did swap out for gel.
That's all I knew at the time.
Gel rollerball refills. So he made like a dozen or so pens. We're like, okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Now what? So I can't remember if it was before I changed to Capital One or if I was still at the old company, but
before you changed, yeah.
Well, it was around that. I think it was actually after, because my dad was at that company too, so we had connections.
It was
there.
September of 2017.
I was at Cap One.
September of 2007.
I was at Cap One.
You were?
Yeah,
okay.
I started after Labor Day because we went to Disney World.
So the company that she used to work for, they give out pens as client gifts for Christmas every year.
So they had some corporate clients and stuff.
Yeah.
So somehow got Brian in front of the VP who was
there was a VP
maker.
who was kind of an entrepreneurial vibe there.
So
and he heard I was doing this and was kind of like, hey, this sounds cool. I want to see your pens.
He saw the pens. He's like, okay, these are not...
The quality's not there yet.
He's like, but I see your potential.
I see your potential. If you can get it there... This was like 2 or 3 weeks, literally, after I'd started making pens. I think I had maybe 6 or 7
And they
pens.
needed, what, like 100 made?
120 or something like
that?
Yeah,
so he's like, if you can improve these things, we'll give you this business. And your parents just so happen to have a laser engraver at the time because your dad, like you, is also a bit of a serial entrepreneur.
The nut doesn't fall far from the tree, as we like to say. So yes, my parents had bought a laser engraver because there's a story behind that. My parents were in the desktop publishing business in the 90s.
We got to keep the story moving along.
Yes. So anyway, my dad was infatuated with the technology. He bought it kind of on spec. So they just happened to have one.
Because of that, we were able to get this corporate order for these pens that would be like individually engraved with people's names through his parents' business. This is such a ridiculous story. So we're like, okay, we'll take the order. And we're like, I guess we're a business now.
I got to figure out how to make these pens.
So we had to, he was a sole proprietor. Then we had to figure out,
we need a checking account. We got to file taxes. We got to figure out all this.
I had to teach myself QuickBooks because between the two of us, it defaulted to me. So we did, and I set up a web page because my dad taught me HTML when I was like 14, 15. This is before Facebook, before like MySpace, all that stuff. And I would set up like little web pages for me and my friends and stuff. So I knew enough. I'd never done ecom before, but I figured it out. There were a lot of just start out.
That's like the theme of this whole business is, we'll figure it out.
I don't know QuickBooks, I'll figure it out. I don't know how to do an ecom, I'll figure it out. How do we take payments? Do we need merchant process? How do we ship? All those things.
How do we make pens? What are fountain pens?
So we set up a website for the handmade pens. So these are all roller balls, and you did dabble a little bit with fountain pens as well. We knew nothing about fountain pens. So we did that for a couple years. You got a corporate order again in 2008. Mm-hmm. In 2000,
this is all while I'm doing the power washing, so I'm doing this as a side
And I'm
hustle.
working in Capital One. I'm pulling the wagon. In 2009, we got pregnant with our son, I got pregnant. It's just a weird way to say it, but we were with child.
I made a contribution.
So we were going to have a son in January of 2010. So 2009, I was pregnant. I was still working at Capital One. My plan was to take my maternity leave and then go back full time, and Brian was going to be a stay-at-home dad.
I was pumped for that, ready for that. Because
we were trying to get his little business off the ground. We got
it was a little
2
business.
or 3 orders a month maybe, and we were not selling them at the price we needed to. Like we were breaking even.
We had never paid ourselves anything for that business.
No, I mean even the pen, like we basically ended up selling it for the sum of the materials. Like we didn't even sell it for enough to cover your labor. We did a couple craft shows. We even got like Virginia Tech licensed products, and we have Virginia Tech pens, Virginia Tech wine bottle stoppers. We even attended.
Those are super rare products if you happen to find one of those.
We attended, and we had to get like special insurance to get the license. It was a whole thing.
I remember. It was $1,700 a year just to get the licensing insurance.
In 2009,
for the tech products.
In the summertime, because I was like
a lot of money then.
I was like 8-10 weeks pregnant. I remember we went to Virginia Tech. They had a Virginia Tech wine festival, and we had a booth there. And our thought was, if
we can't sell Virginia Tech wine bottle stoppers
at a Virginia Tech wine festival, then we have no business being in business.
Then we're done.
We did not sell any.
Goose egg.
And I remember because I had like morning sickness, the whole thing. So we're like,
it was a beautiful day though. I remember that.
So we're like, man, this is just not working. We're doing craft show after craft show. We had the website. We had like build your own pen option. We had all this stuff, and it just like wasn't working. So 2009, this would be July, August. A buddy of yours who is also like a local pen maker heard about the DC Fountain Pen Super Show, which is like the biggest fountain pen show in the world.
Which in my mind was like another craft show, but focused on fountain pens. So I was like, okay, cool, I'll go check it out.
So the two of them went, again, I wasn't feeling well because pregnancy. The two of them went to kind of scope it out to see if next year they would want a table, because it was too late to get a table. Yeah. But the idea being like, hey, if this is a bigger show than the ones we've done, like our local church craft bazaar and things like that.
And literally at the time, the only awareness I had of fountain pens was because when you are buying kits for making pens, a lot of the pen kits have like a roller ball or a fountain pen front section that you can swap out. So you can buy like either version of the kit. So
but you're making like a hollow tube on the outside, so the insides can be swapped.
So like it was theoretical to me, and I knew that they like looked fancy, and that was it. Like I didn't know anything more than anyone else. And in the pen kit,
you didn't know anything about nibs.
And like the craft show pen kit making community, like pretty much nobody knows what fountain pens are or how to use them. They just know that some of them look fancier and people might buy
cartridge converter and what the difference between
so
the
I was like, okay,
nothing.
Cool. I'd like to see what is out there. And so I went to that show.
So you went, and that's where the epiphany happened. If you've never been in DC, and we've talked about it before, it is literally the biggest fountain pen show in the world, but it was overwhelming. I wasn't there. I heard about it afterwards, but he came back with just this like direct download of fountain pens. We need to get in fountain pens.
Well,
I don't know anything about fountain pens. We need to get into it. And you had an interesting experience like buying your first bottle of ink at that show, right?
I did. There were several key things that happened in a very short period of time that were really pivotal for us. Going to that show, the first thing I noticed was walking in there and seeing the enthusiasm and seeing the community that was around it. That's what was missing for us in the rollerball corporate gift community.
There was no community.
Because the floor had fallen out of that by 2009. The economy had really kind of sunk. Corporate gifting had really kind of dropped out.
Even our normal,
as a business.
My old company that stand in corporate orders.
They stopped placing those orders.
Yeah.
So we essentially had no sales pipeline anymore.
No.
So I was kind of desperate going to that show.
We called the business the sinking ship because we were literally acquiring like more materials and things than we were selling, and we weren't selling them at the price we really needed to.
Because people weren't willing to pay it.
Right.
It's not that we didn't know what we were doing, it's that we could not sell them at that price.
We tried custom options, we tried making stuff, so it was not looking good, and here I am pregnant. Also, we had a new house, a very small, like we bought our first house. We thought we were buying
Fixer-upper.
We thought we were buying at the dip. It was not the dip, as we found out later when we sold it for a loss. But it needed a ton of work. Oh my gosh. Like we had septic projects, we had installation projects, we redid the kitchen. The bathroom.
Painted everything, refinished all the floors.
I need to spend like 30 seconds talking about the downstairs bathroom because
Why not? We're already 20 minutes into it. What the heck?
I know. We had a bathroom downstairs, and it had a tub, but no shower.
Time check.
I know. But I'm saying, like, I'm painting the picture for how this business started. The intention was to put in a shower because that was going to be our bedroom, like downstairs.
Simple enough.
With that bathroom, and there was no shower.
Yeah, I can do that. I'll figure it out.
I can't even describe how one thing led to another. But at some point in my pregnancy...
The walls were plaster, I'll say that. If you've ever worked with plaster, you know.
Well, it was just things were tiled over top. Anyway, at one point I'm standing there, I'm pregnant, I'm looking at the dirt under our house. The whole thing ended up being gutted. It was a whole thing.
Had to rewire plumbing, everything.
So, meanwhile, I'm having to go upstairs every time I need to go to the bathroom. When you're pregnant is a lot. So we had that renovation going on while we're trying to get this pen business off the ground, while I'm working my main job. We're like, what is our plan here? Like this thing you have going on here? Like, is that's why you were going to be a stay-at-home dad?
Yeah, because I literally did not have a plan. So
the DC show, Epiphany, we need to get into fountain pens, went home, got online, joined the Fountain Pen Network, which was like the big forum at the time. Oh, the other thing you're going to say about the show is it was very much an older crowd. There was nobody young there at all.
Yes.
And you looked around and you said, this is going to die off if no one new comes in.
How are younger folks like me supposed to learn about these pens?
Well, that's the thing. You wanted to learn about fountain pens, but there's like no one teaching it. Yeah. So we got home, we got online, we tried to get all the information we could. We just couldn't, there wasn't anyone like really teaching it in a way that was attainable. So
social media was in its infancy, still coming into its own.
Through the forums, we realized that there was a demand for nice paper and ink, but there was no one on e-commerce in 2009 who was really specializing or doing it well. Mm-hmm. So our plan was to add some paper and ink to our handmade pens in hopes that it would bring enough people in, and then they would see our pens and they'd be amazing, and then that business would take off. So in November of 2009, we got our first shipment from Exaclair. It was like the Urban Inks and Rhodia, Clairefontaine, that sort of thing. We launched. We had several orders that night. We're like, oh, this is cool. We had this little ding that would go off anytime an order came in. And what ended up happening was people loved the paper and the ink. Nobody really wanted our pens. And they gave us honest feedback. Like, they really weren't suited for a fountain pen enthusiast.
So 3 years worth of investment of time and skills and tools and everything. The whole workshop was dedicated to making pens. And we had to decide relatively quickly after that time that we're not going to make pens anymore. We're going to focus on learning about fountain pens.
Had the kid, went on maternity leave, decided not to go back to Capital One because in my maternity leave I realized I hate my job. And so we gave ourselves till the end of the year. We're like, look, we'll go all in together. Yeah. We have some savings at this point. We borrowed a little bit from your parents just to like get a purchase order placed or whatever. But we decided to go all in.
3 months. That's the only debt we've ever taken in this business, and I hated it. I hated the feeling of owing anybody anything, especially my parents. But they loved us and supported us. So.
And I did get like 10 hours a week remote from my old company. Yeah. Just to get food on the table and diapers,
But I mean, literally, that was it. It was kind of a wing and a prayer. It was like jumping off the cliff and growing our wings as we fell.
And we did, and we are 20-some minutes into this video, so we really need to wrap it up as our whole leadership team is waiting for us to have our leadership stand up.
The main theme, though, with this whole thing, and we share this whole backstory, number one, please don't follow our exact path to figure it out. But the overall theme, part of it is,
we worked really hard.
Working really hard, following passion
supporting your spouse.
That is practical at the time. We never took on debt. We never took risk. We were never in true jeopardy of us or our family while we were doing this. It was borderline. It was risky, but all the risk was on us and our own ability to work to make it happen. And we just, in our guts, believed that we could do it, and we did it. So,
here we are.
That's
almost 10 years.
Ultimately what, and we got really freaking lucky. We just got really lucky with the timing and all the things that worked out.
The opportunity, all the things.
So, it's a pretty crazy story. We've told pretty much most of it now. Obviously,
there's always more details, always more story for another day.
There is indeed, but
we're very
told you a lot of it
today.
Very grateful. Hope you enjoyed that. So anyway, Rachel and I are very nostalgic this week, thinking about our 13th anniversary. And we hope you've enjoyed a little insight into the craziness that was the origin story of our marriage and Goulet Pens. So
thanks for watching.
If you like this video and you want more like it, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching, and right on.